Section 2, Middle Childhood. This section explores middle childhood, covering the period between 6 and 12 years of age. During this time, children consolidate and expand upon what they have learned in the early years, building on their understanding of the physical world around them, relationships, play, and language. Middle childhood also sees children develop a new repertoire of increasingly sophisticated social, cognitive, and cultural skills. In this section, we explore children's growing sense of right and wrong and the norms that regulate their moral thinking and behavior, how their sense of self is tied to the group they belong to, and roles of intergroup contact, cooperation, and empathy in bringing groups together. We will also look at children's imagination, creativity, and problem solving, and the role of memory plays in children's daily lives and in telling the story of who they are. How do children learn right from wrong? Learning outcomes. After reading this chapter, you will be able to describe how children develop fairness, spite, and helping behaviors, understand the roles of emotions, punishment, and reputation in moral development, explore cross-cultural differences and similarities in morality. Introduction. Our sense of right and wrong exerts a powerful influence over us. It can make us feel guilty and ashamed, or proud and righteous. It can motivate us to help and share, or to punish others and act spitefully. It forces us to justify our actions as fair. It creates individual differences in the way that we set out moral compass. Throughout middle childhood and moral reasoning, moral identity and moral behavior all undergo significant change. What counts as good might start with a simple act of kindness, for example, picking up accidentally dropped objects or opening doors for an adult whose hands are full. But this develops in a more complex set of intuitions that are sensitive to care, /harm, fairness, cheating, loyalty, betrayal, authority, subversion, and sanctity, degradation, all of which can take on culturally specific meanings. As children develop, they show greater skills at weighting one moral principle, e.g., don't lie against another, lie against another, lie if it prevents harm to others. By the time they reach adulthood, matter as diverse as tax evasion, assisted dying, and freedom of speech can take a moral nature. Unlike a decision on particle physics, for example, the entry bar for joining these moral debates is set quite low. We all have an internal moral compass we can consult, and being judgmental comes relatively easy to us. Specifics of the debate may change, but many of the underlying moral principles at stake, justice, fairness, rights, are the same ones. Philosophers have been arguing about for millennia. Moral debates are here to stay, but where does our moral sense come from, and how does it develop? Fairness, justice, and spite. Many situations in life, competition for resources. A child might be in the competition with their sibling for food, protection, or the attention of a caregiver. For example, this competition can be resolved by fighting, whereby the strongest might win, or it could be resolved on the first come, first served basis, whereby the quickest might win. Most animals resolve despite disputes over resources in this way, but there are alternatives. Bonobo chimps will have sex with one another if they discover a new resource like a fruit tree. Apparently, the sex helps to relax them and prevents fighting over who gets the best fruit. Bonobos use sex as a way to they engage in it a lot, as they're seemingly aroused by anything, including cardboard boxes. The Well, 2016. Beyond fighting and first come first served, humans have a third way to resolve such disputes that seems unique to us: a sense of fairness. The advantage of this is that it avoids unnecessary and potentially costly conflict, which is to everyone's benefit. The disadvantage is that we must sometimes experience that all too human sting of unfairness when we feel justice has not been served. Psychologists Peter Blake and Catherine McAuliffe were interested in exactly how the sense of fairness emerges in development. Blake and McAuliffe, 2011. Blake and McAuliffe, 2011. They gave 178 children aged 4 to 8 years, in which one child could accept or reject an unequal allocation of sweets. The children who didn't know each other were paired up, and one child took the role of the decider. The decider could pull a green handle to accept the offer of sweets, which caused the trays of sweets to tilt towards each child so that the sweets fell into their respective bowls. They could reject the offer by pulling a red handle, in which case both trays tilted towards the middle. Sweets from one thing to another, they've learned on that one thing. So that would not really come into it, having to be foragers and stuff. They are collaborating with someone who is pulling their weight, or whether they are paired with a slacker. Ibbotson et al., 2019. In one of these experiments, a pair of children had to pull a rope to receive a sticker each, and if only one pulled on the rope, neither would get the reward. In this context, free riding on another person's effort isn't an option. If you want a sticker, you have to work together. As before, the researchers tested inequality in two ways. Some children received more of the jointly produced rewards than their partner, while in other cases, the partner received more rewards. When children had to work together to gain rewards, even children as young as 3 years of age showed an aversion to both forms of inequality. Hammam et al., 2011. This is strong evidence that collaboration makes a big difference to our sense of fairness. It also reinforces a broader point about methods raised in Chapter 3, when the ability is estimated to emerge in development. Yeah, but young kids like to be doing what the big kids are doing, so it might not be anything to do with what's fair and what's not fair. It's just like, do this and we get a sticker. Oh, well, I'll help you then. Doing what you're doing. The evidence here is especially convincing because some of these studies had control groups in which children were confronted with the same unequal distribution upon entering the experimental room, like a windfall, or had to work for the resources, but in the independent manner. In these situations, the children did not equally distribute the spoils in the same way. This also hints at what our keen sense of fairness is for, namely, to maintain good relationships with other collaborators who we might need to collaborate with in the future. In these collaborative contexts, children have an expectation that others are obliged to contribute in the common good. Children are very strategic over whom they share with, feeling the need to justify their moral reason as to why they would give some people more than others based on merit, effort, or need. For example, children share more rewards with other children who work more or contribute more at a joint reward. Maud, Tell, 2012. Children negatively judge, punish, or choose not to reward or collaborate with other children who are free riding on the effort of others. Yang et al. 2018. And a 6-year-old will actually pay cost to themselves, e.g., in others, even when they are not directly affected by unequal distribution. This shows that by middle childhood, children not only have a very strong sense of fairness, but also willing to police this fairness to others. That's not policing the fairness. That's just I'm willing to share one of my sweets, just like I said I would even now. I hate going to cinema. And I go, do you want a box of popcorn? No. You know, it says your date or whatever. And I get a bit like nice big popcorn. And then she wants some of my popcorn. And I'm like, well, why didn't you have your own popcorn? I offered you popcorn. I actually wanted all this popcorn for myself. Children also judge poor individuals as more deserving of resources than wealthy individuals, and their wish to support the poor overrules their otherwise very strong desire to share resources equally. Port, 2014. Key points. Collaborative activities heighten children's sense of fairness. Children consider merit, effort, and need to allocating a fair share. Children are willing to police fairness in others, even when the unfairness does not directly affect them, or when they're doing so on a fair study. Children decided together with 2 puppets where to distribute resources in equal or unequal manner in all varieties of the test. The puppets ended up with distributing resources in an unequal way, thereby disadvantaging the child. What varied was whether the children had a voice in the decision-making process. The main result was the children were more likely to be satisfied with unfair allocation if the puppets had allowed them to participate in the decision-making process. Brock et al. 2018. Jan Engelman, making process. Brock et al. 2018. Jan Engelman interprets this evidence that children are not primarily preoccupied with the material stuff in these sharing games, who gets what exactly, but rather what the social meaning of the act of distribution, that is, whether they are and others being treated with equal respect. Engelman and Tumsella, 2019. In Chapter 11, we explore whether the general picture of fairness development in children hold true across the diverse contexts children grow up in around the world. Well, agreeing to some of it is part of the thing, even in adulthood, you know. Captain gets the half of the booty, and the crew gets half of the booty.